I'm Lynn Ryan with Remax of Boulder, and today I have John Suitor, who is the head of the school, Boulder Country Day, where my youngest daughter attends. I'm excited to ask you a few questions and welcome you to Remax of Boulder.
Thank you very much. Look forward to it.
Boulder is a unique place. Given the high level of education of adults here, can you talk about Boulder and the level of education?
I think it provides a really interesting background for a lot of our families and a lot of our schools. Boulder has a diverse number of schools, public, private, charter, parochial, and one of the things that I think an educated population provides is the option for children to go where they fit best. So some children might be best served in Boulder Valley's public school district, some might be best served at Boulder Country Day School, others might be best served at charter schools in and around town. So I think once you gather an educated public, they want what's best for their kids. And I think that what's best for their kids oftentimes is not a one-size-fits-all educational system. So I think in general, the network of public and private schools and schools with different missions really serves our population well.
I would agree with that. I think Boulder has niches for everyone. We've experienced personally public schools and private schools, and I have 3 daughters. My oldest 2 did attend the public schools, and for my youngest daughter, who's at Boulder Country Day, it's been a really nice transition for her to a different structure.
Yeah. One of the things that I focus on as a school leader is knowing that we're all in this together, right? Our number one objective is to make sure that our kids receive the kind of education that we want. And one neat thing about independent schools is we each have a specific mission. And that mission might not be the best for each family.
Right.
But because we each have a specific mission, families can then choose among independent schools if they can. And sometimes it works out great for them. And other times the public schools do a great job at educating their kids.
Given that Boulder does have highly ranked public schools, what advantages do you think the private school has to offer?
I would say, first of all, that as I mentioned before, I think having both public and private schools is really important in any sort of schooling environment. I think one of the things that private schools has to offer is we can be a little more specific on the kind of education we want to offer. And, whether it's an art school, which we have here in North Boulder, or a country day setting like we have at BCD, or a Waldorf school or a Montessori school, we can choose those different missions for our families and for our children. My public school colleagues have a much broader mission. And as a result, they can serve an incredibly wide range of kids, and they do a great job at that. Private schools can have a narrower mission that can focus in a little more succinctly on what we want to do and how we want to do it. And I would say a little bit about private school missions. I think one of the things that's unique about independent schools is we don't have to do everything. We only have to do what we say we do, and we have to do it well.
Right.
Because if we don't do it well, families will leave and go elsewhere. And so that really forces us, I believe, to be very good at what we do, and because we feel that pressure and we know that it's important that we get it right. So we're not a school, Boulder Country Day or any other private school in the Boulder area is not necessarily a school for every child, but we've got to do what we say we do well.
Nationally, there are some trends that are happening, and I'm just wondering if you can elaborate on what your school is doing to be competitive with those trends and enhance the experience.
All of these things are getting more and more personalized or individualized. And I think that is one of the key trends that we're seeing nationally, whether it has to do with online learning or specific curricular tracks. There's a lot of STEM in particular that's happening in Boulder now. And for those of you who don't know, STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math. And I think that's what all schools are beginning to understand is the key to success. So at Boulder Country Day, for example, we offer a broad-based curriculum that offers our kids the chance to sort of discover what they're good at. We call it Discovering Your Excellence. And so we have our sort of regular language arts, science, history, mathematics, curriculum, but we also add 2 world languages, and we add art, and we add PE, and we add a citizenship and character program. So our idea is that we know our children are going to find their way into something that benefits them and that they're passionate about, and we think we need to provide them with the opportunities to do that.
Taste of
A
everything.
little taste of everything, that's right, because who knows, who the next rocket scientist is going to be,
Right.
or who the next school leader or politician is going to be.
Well, I know my daughter performed the right before Halloween, got to participate in the makeup.
Right, the backstage makeup class,
Yes.
special effects makeup.
So I would
Sorry.
pick her up from after school, and she would have a big bloody scar
Right.
across her neck, or a pencil coming
Sticking
out of her hand.
right.
So that was one of the very cool
Yeah.
opportunities to get to do that.
So teaching creativity
Yeah.
with intention is something that schools across the country are trying to get at. Artists just aren't made, for example. They're also taught how to be really good artists. So providing students with the opportunity to learn about creativity is a great example.
Yeah.
Another thing that we do at BCD to try and personalize the experience is we have what we call a flooding program. So for our kindergarten, first and second grade students, instead of one teacher teaching in a literacy block, we have a learning center, and we bring the entire learning center team into a grade level so that you can get 6 skilled literacy teachers working with 30 kids, and you can rearrange groupings based on strengths and skills and abilities and so forth, and we find it's had a tremendous impact. And that's what's happening in the world for the children as well, so we try and as best we can and mirror that in our school.
Today, what challenges do students face in the school systems?
So I think children in general are facing a set of challenges today that are unique in our history. I think it's because of 2 reasons. Number one, the world is changing, which we expect. But number 2, the pace of change is incredibly fast, and that hasn't always been the case. If you think back 100 years ago, surely there was technology and there were innovations that were changing society and a variety of different structures, whether it's in the economy or government or what have you. But the pace of change wasn't quite as fast. And I think families in general are wrestling with that pace of change. And one of the things that it does is it heightens anxiety in our families, because truly we're preparing kids for a future that we know very little about.
Right.
And when you're preparing kids for something you don't know much about, you get anxious and you wonder, well, what am I doing the right thing? And who knows what life is going to be like 20 years from now. But I think there are some things that we can be sure will be true. One of which is we need people who are critical thinkers. We need people who are able to understand a balance between one side of an issue and another side of an issue. We need people who are going to be able to interact with others who are not like themselves. And if anything that we've learned over the past 20 years is the world has gotten a lot smaller and a lot closer together. Our students are just as likely to be interacting with a student from a country that's not the United States than anybody else ever has. And so we have to be able to make sure that our children have the skills and abilities to really interact across cultures. So those are just among several things that are different that I didn't have. But nobody was talking to me about whether or not you're going to be interacting with people from other countries in your college life or in your work life or what have you. And for our kids, and especially for children in Boulder, that happens on a regular basis.
Right.
This is an international city, but the ability to connect with people, I think, is going to be more important in the future than it is today.
Which kind of leads to the part of what I'm attracted to at BCD is you do a lot of community service, bring awareness to nonprofit organizations by either bringing them into the school or the children actually have to go out and participate in these, which I think is such a wonderful attribute to the school. Can you elaborate a little bit about how that came about and what you have seen from that?
Yeah, I think it's part of a couple of different initiatives that we have. One of the things we say in our mission is we want to raise responsible, globally aware citizens. For our school, our youngest students connect with Boulder Parks and open space. It's easy for them. It makes sense to them. It's about at that level of capability they have. Okay, we're going to
Grasping
connect with this. Yeah, they can get it. Our 3rd through 5th grade students work with an organization called There With Care. And that's an organization that serves critically ill children and families. And they get the fact that they can serve others who are like them, who just have a terrible tragedy happen to them. And then our 6th through 8th graders are connecting with Bridge House in Boulder. And to have our kids understand that the issue of homelessness exists is really, really important for them, I think, to develop into more well-rounded human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And, ultimately we want to raise kids who are smart and thoughtful, but we also want to raise good people.
Right.
And to me, that's the key.
Yeah, good people in the end is
Yeah.
probably more important in some aspects
Yeah.
than understanding
I think you're right.
calculus.
I think you're right. And calculus is important.
For certain
And we
people.
want to make sure our kids have the ability to study calculus in their high school careers. But being good people, being good citizens, having character is something that we find is among the most important aspects of our school.
Yeah, people come to BCD for different reasons. I know why I chose BCD, or actually my youngest daughter chose BCD, but can you elaborate on what sets you apart and what people are drawn to in their children?
We're a really interesting school, and I think this is true for Boulder as well. Only about 10% of our kids and our families, or what I would say, are from Boulder. 90% of our families, including me, come from somewhere else.
We're all transplants.
We're all transplants. And that presents a really, really interesting opportunity, I think, for not only our school, but for schools in Boulder. People come to BCD because they're interested in their children finding their academic excellence, whether that's a well-rounded student who excels across the curriculum, or someone who excels in the arts, or in world language, or in mathematics, or in science, or whatnot. People choose BCD because of its focus on community. One of the things that we know, when you have 90% of your population coming from somewhere else, you have to, as a school, work really hard to build that community over time, and we do so with intention. We want to make sure that our parents and our families know each other. Oftentimes in our admission process, we're looking for not just the fit of our student and our school, but also will the family feel at home? And particularly if you have someone who's applying to our school from out of state, they're moving to Boulder, they want to be able to feel like this is a place that they can see their children. This is a place that they can feel like they're part of the greater Boulder community. So community is really, really important to us. The other pieces that I would say are important for our families, number one would be our character education program. I would say also, I mentioned a little bit before about our ability to differentiate our curriculum. So a lot of families are looking for that personal touch from teachers and from administrators. And so they want their children to be known and valued, and small class sizes are a hallmark of our school. Student-teacher relationships are a hallmark of our school, and I think that when our families tour our school and see our elementary school classrooms where our teachers are on the floor doing an activity with their students, or tour our middle school classrooms where we have kids out in the hallway trying to make sure they understand velocity and acceleration, and that's the longest indoor space we have in our school, and they're throwing stuff down the hall and measuring it. I mean, that's what you want. Those are the experiences that you want to have, I think, as a student, but also as a family. You want to make sure your kids have those. So I would say those things primarily: the academic experience, the community experience, the experience of differentiation. I mentioned that we have a well-staffed learning center before us, really, really important. Character, really important as well. So at least those four. Yeah, why did you choose it? And why did Ava?
Well, Ava we moved over to BCD halfway through 6th grade.
Yeah.
Middle school we found was a challenge for her. Can be sometimes mostly social.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't happy at the school that she was at, and because of it was not performing well. She was kind of regressing in her studies. And we did tour some other schools. What we found was it was a really good fit for her. It felt very, very comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And that also goes back to that we like to keep them young
Right.
a little bit longer.
Right.
I felt that the kids there were welcoming. They weren't trying to be in high school for us, which is where we wanted to be. She wanted to embrace her age in 6th grade, and she got to do that. I think she still does.
Yeah.
8th grade is a little different, but
It is. It's interesting, speaking specifically about middle school. I think that these are crucial years in our kids' lives. They are crucial. There is so much going on that they've got to have a safe space where they can develop into good students and good people, and have the chance to make mistakes, and have the chance to learn what it's like to have close friendships. And I think what you said about feeling comfortable is super important to middle school kids, because they're not fully evolved yet into the people that they're going to be. And oftentimes those middle school years are the years where the most change is happening in their lives.
Right. I would have liked to have had started her earlier. And I'd like for BCD to be talking about opening a high school in the next 6 months, but I don't think that's going to happen. So.
I think, so that's actually an interesting question. I get that a lot. Are you planning on opening a high school? And I can say firmly that we're committed to the K-8 experience.
Right.
I think one of the unique things about our school, and it actually relates back to the middle school experience, is middle schoolers in our school have a chance to be what I would call top dogs. Right? They're not in between someone else. We're not on a high school campus where there are high schoolers present, and they really have a chance to develop their leadership and mentoring skills for younger children in particular. And there's nothing more important for a middle schooler than developing a sense of empathy and a sense of belonging. And if they can help a little first grader do it or a little pre-kindergartner do it, then my goodness, that's going to have a heck of an impact.
And you do that because I know that Ava is paired up with somebody in the elementary school.
Yeah, we have these things called Bulldog Families. So they're one student from every grade level. So our school, if you start in preschool and you include preschool, pre-K, kindergarten through 8th, there are 11 different grade levels. So Bulldog Families comprise one student from every grade level, and they're led by our 8th graders. And so our 8th graders will literally walk over to the preschooler classrooms, and they'll bring the little preschoolers by their hand into our Bulldog family environment, and there are 11 of them sitting around. They each have a faculty advisor. But we train our faculty not to take the lead and really let our 8th graders do it. It's a wonderful chance to interact with kids across grade levels. And that can be someone's excellence. That's the other thing too. It could be that a child at that moment in her life decides, wow, I really want to be a teacher. And that could, in fact, craft an entire child's educational career from that point onward. So that's what we try to do.
Yeah. Thanks for coming. It's been great to have you here. I know that I've learned a little bit more about BCD. Certainly, if anybody is watching this and has questions from a parent's perspective, I'd be delighted to talk with them, or I can introduce you to other parents of younger children that are attending. I would say that if somebody wants to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to contact you or the school to discuss maybe a new family or somebody who's already local who wants to consider Boulder Country Day as their school?
So you can certainly reach out to the school. Our phone number is 303-527-4931. You can reach out to me via email. It's first initial J, last name Suitor, which is S like Sierra, UITOR, @bouldercountryday.org. I'd love to answer any of your questions about our school or about education in general. And I can promise you if I don't know it, I'll make sure I find someone who does.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.